Hey, welcome back. You good? We good? Everybody good? All right. Thanks for coming back. So one thing that I did miss was, the point of self-development, the point of investing in yourself is that there's no better thing to invest your time and energy in than yourself. Because when you do that, you become a better version of yourself for yourself, but you also become a better version of yourself for everybody else. It's a ripple effect, right? Like you're a happier person, so you emit positivity, and then positivity draws back in, and it's a wonderful thing. So what I was going to talk about was some credibility stuff to try to explain why I have, authority to talk about the things that I want to talk about. And it's all based on experience. I have been through a whole bunch of crap, and I have worked through a whole bunch of crap. And I've gotten to where I've gotten to. So still have a little bit of an outline. I'll be poking around a little bit. And I originally had a lot of things written out and a lot of things mapped out in this big giant blueprint to throw everything at you all at once. And then the feedback that I got from that was like, dude, no, like fucking slow your roll, man. Tap the brakes, give a little bit of information out, provide a high level overview, and then just kind of test the waters and see how things go. So I'm going to try to do that, but obviously there's some excitement in this and it's still kind of new. So I'm kind of bouncing around. Credibility stuff, I'll start with a little bit of my ugly, and the purpose is that so that you know where I'm coming from, and so that I can say to you and you can trust me that when I empathize, I actually empathize because I've been there and I've felt what you felt. I don't have anything to hide. I told you before, I'll be transparent and authentic. I've already unloaded all my junk through the processes that I've gone through. I've confessed, repented, inventoried, and I've thrown it all out there a couple different times. So there's no reason for me, meaning that I'm laying myself out there for you. And again, the reason I'm doing this is because this side of life and freedom and being able to be in yourself without burdens is awesome. I have done a lot of stupid, reckless things, and there was a lot of shame and guilt and fear and regret and remorse over that, and I carried that identity for a long time. I do realize now, finally, it's work that you have to go through to get to this side of it, but my past is not my present. My past is my platform, right? To present before you all the stupid things that I did to get to where I had to correct that and work through the things that I worked through so it's my platform to actually show you what not to do, and my kind of point in the world to deliver the message that I'm trying to deliver. When I say, if I can do it, you can do it, that's another reason for doing this too, because you have to be able to connect, you have to be able to trust and see where I'm coming from to be like, oh man, wow, yeah, he went through that, I went through that too, so let's see what this dude has to say. I am not the worst things that I've done, you are not the worst things that you have done. They were just part of life, and as long as we got through it, we survived it, so we learn from it, we build from it, and we don't make the same mistakes. So, quick story. A pivotal moment for me was in 2007 when I chose to move from California to Texas with my wife at the time and my two kids, my two boys, which are at the time they were 2 and 5. Sold a house in California, built a house in Texas. I just recently graduated law school, like 5 or 6 months before that, and then I left a outstanding career job, and they didn't want me to leave, but I was like, I know better, I know what I'm doing. Just take your family and move halfway across the country. How do you think that worked out? It was the idea to come to Texas. There was family here that we had connections with, and ultimately the idea was to just take the bar exam, pass, get my law license, work my way up, have the kids in good schools, and live a good, thriving life. It didn't work out well at all. It was a shitstorm. It was a bad plan. It was terrible. Bad planning, crash and burn. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Our relationship before we got here was in dire straits, and I'll get into that later, but we didn't have a whole lot hanging on when we moved out here. So by the time we moved out here, there was already damage. So with that, within 4.5 years, I'll just throw some of this out there. Within 4.5 years landing in Texas, I found myself separated and divorced, which included custody disputes and child support on me for 11 years. I filed bankruptcy twice, chapter 13 and then chapter 7. I took and failed the bar exam because I studied for all of like 2 or 3 weeks and I didn't know anything about Texas law, but I took the damn thing anyway and did not pass. The house we had built was foreclosed on. Of course, she had already left by that time. I was fired from 2 really good jobs. I had 2 trips to rehab for alcohol and, intensive outpatient lockdown rehab. And it was, that it didn't work, by the way. And I was arrested twice and placed on probation for alcohol-related incidents, which included all the benefits of probation, which is like monthly check-in for this, monthly check-in for that, money here, money there, test for this, test for that, mandatory this, mandatory that, and it was an ass kicker because that wasn't who I was. I mean, it was alcohol, so it was never intentional. Yes, it was intentional for me to drink, but it was never intentional to take it to where it went. So I'm not a criminal. So being in a criminal system it really screwed me up. I'm going to work in a gigantic corporation with an ankle monitor under my slacks. So that was not a joy filler. And then, consequences at the time, even though I was in trouble and had to go through all that crap, it didn't matter. It didn't stop me from what I was doing because I was hell-bent on just being reckless. So there was more. There was a toxic relationship with my ex-wife that I held on to for 7 years. 7 years. So we split and I hang on for 7 years because I was in complete denial about the fact that how could she ever leave me after all that I've done for her? And I'm going to be there for my kids. And it was just brutal and it was not good. So wow, right? I mean, here I am, a decorated Marine veteran, and I'm a graduate degree person, and I've got this corporate career and this, that, and the other. It didn't matter. I was just unhappy in the relationship. I was unhappy with the choices I made very early on in life, and I just ran from it, and I never dealt with it, and I just kept trying to fill the holes, trying to fill the voids with anything that I could to keep myself happy, which was nothing because I never was. I was in denial about divorce, and at one point at like 40 something, I was living in the spare bedroom of my mom's house, jobless, broke, and, damn near suicidal, constructively suicidal, because I would drink way past the red line to black out and pass out drunk and, probably very close to alcohol poisoning a lot of different times. So it was what I now call, it was a valley of darkness. It was like 7 to 8 years of a valley of darkness. And it's one that I put myself in, unfortunately. And it's one that I was able to come out of. And this is raw, right? This is real. Emotions are a real thing. I get emotional because this is no bullshit. This is life. This is my life that I'm talking about. And some really bad things happened. And I, stayed in denial, and I stayed as a victim. Everything was everybody else's fault. I justified everything. I manipulated people to believe me and, just be on the same emotional rung that I was, which was low. I eventually just landed into all things bad. And at the end of the day, everything was my fault. And it sucks when you realize that, but it's also glorifying because now I realize who's actually in control. Ultimately, God's in control. But for me, I was in control of my choices, and I got myself in the situation that I did. And I just chose to not deal with all the problems that I had, and I chose to look away from them. So December 13th, 2019, something happened that changed everything. So going back, 2017, I started to mentally surface a little bit, and I started to get myself better, and I started to look at what my opportunities were instead of what all my failures were and what I couldn't do. And I started to look at what I could do. And I was in a good place for several months, and then I ended up meeting my current wife. That happened in July of 2018. And that was awesome. But because I'm me and hadn't dealt with any of my crap yet, I couldn't accept that. I didn't think I was worthy of good things. So I tried to fuck that up too. And it ended up where it ended up, which was bad, but also good. Shortly after meeting my wife, my dad died, actually the next day. And then my mom died 3 weeks after that. And these were the people that I was taking care of for 2-3 years because they were not in great health. And they were also the people that were the cause of a lot of significant childhood trauma. And this is stuff that we never talked about because they would never talk about it. And now they're gone, so it will never be talked about. And so when they passed, this, wall that I'd been putting up and all these boundaries that I'd placed in front of myself to not let anybody into me, the dam broke, and everything that I had been stuffing for 40 something years came out. And it was a hectic, tragic, intense few months. So, add on to that, which I was already going through on my own, death and having to deal with that. So, yeah, that was a hard time. So let me land the plane, so to speak. So credibility for the last 4.5 years, since December 13th, 2019, I have completely embedded myself into self-development, recovery, and all the things that go with that. So I have spent, thousands of hours listening to podcasts, hundreds and hundreds of hours in group therapy and individual therapy. I actually lead a recovery program at our church called Regeneration. I've done that 3 years. It'll be 4 years starting in August, and I run a group for adult men and also a group for male kids, 11th and 12th graders, 11th and 12th grade high school men, students, boys. And this will be the second year that we're launching that with them. So I've got that behind me. I've got, books, podcasts, videos, hundreds of hours of counseling. I stay connected and team up with the recovery community, including people that are in podcasts, that run podcasts. And a good friend of mine, Jesse, he wrote a book and he runs a podcast, and other people through church and other people through the recovery community. There's a lot going on that I stay involved with. So when I say embedded for 4.5 years, this is the majority of what I have done besides work and family and working out. It's like recovery and self-development and transformation and all that goes with that. There's that, plus there's 45 years of life experience of knowing what not to do and then knowing what to do and trying them both and seeing the results of both for myself, but also through other people and seeing their journeys and being like, yeah, I've seen that. When you get to a point in life where you're 40 or 50 years old, man, you've seen a lot. And if you're not completely blind, you retain that information so that you can use it as experience and wisdom. I also have a bad habit of making things way more complicated for myself than they need to be. And that's a work in progress too. And that's just a me thing that I have to work through. Ultimately, again, I said this in the last episode, but I know what worked for me. And I don't know if what worked for me will work for you, but I do know that the information out there is finite. It's limited. If you're in the stuff as long as you are and you've seen as much as other people have seen, or if you've been in this for a few years, you start seeing trends. It's the same information that's out there. It's just delivered a different way. And people like me connect with people that are saying it a different way, or they're delivering it a different way, or they have a different background that's more congruent with yours. So, am I going to listen to a counselor that's trying to counsel me that had never had alcohol issues? Fuck no, I'm not going to listen to that person. I'll respect them and their degree and their wisdom and their knowledge about psychology, but from a connection standpoint, there's just going to be a lack. So that's important to me, is to connect with people so that you know where I'm coming from. All right, back on track. So The other part of what I want to do is help uncomplicate this for you. How do you get sober? Well, you stop drinking. That's how you get sober. Okay, then what? Well, that's the hard part. Getting alcohol into your lips and not doing that is not drinking and staying sober. But having to learn how to live the rest of your life without alcohol, which is something that you've used for your entire life, is a whole different story. So I want to uncomplicate things for you because there's so much information that it can appear complicated, but that's where I'm trying to break this stuff down. I have a system that I'm going to try to build and present, but there's steps, and then there's steps after the steps that you can master that then gives you a launching point. So, let's say you go through a 12-step program, and then also, which I'll explain later, emotional intelligence, mindset, habits. So when you're at the end of your 12 steps, there's a phrase, the end is just your beginning. So you end something to then begin the next part of your journey. So, okay, I've been sober for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. Awesome. I still don't have any fucking idea of what I'm supposed to be doing or how to live life. So that's the next step. The end of your first phase is then the beginning of your second phase. But you've picked up a lot during that 9 months, and you're learning more about yourself, and you're practicing all these different things to be able to go forward in your second phase a lot smarter. So it's like a force multiplier. That's a small sample. Just going through that little tidbit of junk during that 8 years is a small sample of what I went through and, what I've overcome. And me being dysfunctionally functional for a long time was what worked for me. It didn't work. I thought it worked. And I got as far as I did, but eventually, again, it just crashed and burned. So transformation starts with taking a hard look in the mirror. I mean, if you don't know that by now, or if nobody's told you that, then that's good information. It's a process to dissect yourself and expose yourself to yourself. I said stop lying to yourself in the first video, and that's just 100% true. Stop lying to yourself. But you have to expose yourself too. You have to lay yourself bare to be able to look back at yourself. And then you got to reprogram your mind. And you do that by learning new things and then trying them on a consistent basis. And we'll get into more habits and stuff later, but there is a way to do something on a consistent basis when you're aware of it and intentionally saying, no, don't think that, think this. And you do that enough times over the course of enough time, and then that becomes automatic. That becomes something subconscious in your head. It's where you don't have to stop and recognize it anymore. It's just an automatic thing to where it's like, I don't know, we'll talk about yellow rider moving trucks. And there's a reason for that. I could not look at a yellow rider moving truck or say yellow rider moving truck for decades. And over the course of time, finally facing it and finally working through it, I can sit here and say it without having an emotional breakdown. So it works. Trust me. God did not get me this far to only come this far. I didn't go through all the crap that I went through and survive and thrive afterwards and be alive in general to just be here and that just be enough. Again, I'm here to say if I was that bad, and trust me, I was that bad, and I could get through it, you can get through it too. I will stop talking for now, and hopefully this was a good insight as to where I'm coming from and why I'm even here. I do have a lot of experience. I have done a lot of bad things, but I've worked through them, and I've got a pretty good system of how that happened. That works, hopefully for you. So, all right, we'll see you next time. Thanks.